Good morning. How are we on a Saturday morning? Thank you, Amy. It's a privilege for Panhandle PBS to be here to partner with both Amarillo branch of NAACP and Indivisible Amarillo to extend the reach of these community conversations. We believe these discussions can foster understanding and improve life in this community, and our mission is to educate and inform. We will be recording this event, and as we record it, we will post it next week on our website, panhandlepbs.org, on our YouTube channel, on our social media, Facebook, those sorts of things. So you'll be able to find it and share it with people who were not able to be here and make sure that they see it. We're very glad to welcome the candidates for the Amarillo Independent School District Board of Trustees. Cumulative voting, let's all talk about it. 3 seats are open in the election on May 4th. There is another race that Robin Malone, she is a trustee that was appointed to fill James Allen's unexpired term. She has taken that role. She is running for re-election, but she is unopposed, which is why we not having her grilled up here today. But I am going to let her. But I am going to let her go ahead and introduce herself and make a little statement here. You want to go ahead?
Sure. My name is Robin Malone, and I am running to fill the seat for the unexpired term on the Amarillo Independent School District Board of Trustees. It's been my pleasure to serve you in that capacity since my appointment in September of last year. And I am seeking your vote. I always say it doesn't matter that you're running uncontested, you're running against yourself. And I think that it's important that the electorate know who's representing them there. Since my time on the board, I have worked really hard to make sure that the interests of all stakeholders are represented. In addition, I'm a Christian woman, so before I get up there each day, I realize the difficulty and the challenges of the decisions that we're making and the people that we're impacting on a daily basis. And I just want you to know that I don't take that lightly. I think that it's important that we have strong neighborhood schools. I think it's important that we work to eliminate the gaps in performance rates between minority and non-minority students. I think it's important that we increase the diversity in our staff and faculty represented throughout AISD. And also, and finally, I think that it's important that we look at our subgroups and that we make sure that we're identifying and maximizing the resources that are available to students with special needs, our English language learners, and that we also give them the best educational experience that we can offer them. So thank you for your time. I know I wasn't on the panel, but I think it's important for you to see my face so you can put that face with the name, and it's an honor and a privilege to serve you in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, so 3 seats are open in this election. The voting is cumulative, meaning that you can cast. Here's the tricky part. You can cast 4 votes when you go vote for AISD in this election, but one of those votes is dedicated to Robin Malone's race. So you'll have 3 votes to distribute among 1, 2, or 3 candidates that you like for the position. That make sense in a strange way? Okay. As far as who's running for re-election, trustees Jim Austin and John Betancourt are running for re-election along with the challengers Kimberly Anderson, Hobart Brown Jr., Alonzo Everhart, Dick Ford, Aaron Ladd, and Rob Parker. And Jim Austin could not be here today. Yes, Hobart, I'm sorry, I apologize. And trustee F. Scott Flo is not running for re-election, so there's 1 open seat, totally open. And I want to emphasize that we are recording this event. We will have it up on our Panhandle PBS website and all our social media. We're going to start with a minute each for the candidates to give an opening statement, and then we'll go with questions. Aaron, let's start with you.
Let's start with me.
The idea is to, why don't you go ahead and sit down?
Okay.
Because we're going to pass microphones so I can stay here.
All right. Sorry. Didn't mean to push you.
Sorry.
This is a marker. So do I need to?
Yeah, just, you can take the microphone off the stand and just pass it around.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out. My name's Aaron Ladd. I am obviously a resident of Amarillo. I have been for, just over 10 years of my life in a cumulative effect. I was born in Amarillo. My parents went to Tascosa High School and met here and were married here. When I was very young, we moved away, and I grew up mostly in the DFW area. I met my wife down there, and we were married. She's actually from Pampa, and that was the connection to the Panhandle that we have. We were able to move back up to this area about 7 or 8 years ago. We've got twin boys. They're in 4th grade, and my wife is also a teacher in 4th grade. So, frankly, the issues that affect our students and our kids they're vitally important to me. And same thing on the teacher side. I certainly don't want to do anything that would ever hurt or harm our teaching corps, and at the same time, we're all here to educate our kids, and so my kids included, everybody else's kids included. So that's why I'm running. That's what's important to me in those effects. Timer went off.
You're just fine.
Okay.
If you'll pass the mic down, John Betancourt.
Good morning. If you don't mind, I'd like to stand up so I can see everybody when I'm
Yeah,
speaking.
it's fine when you. He's very tall.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Betancourt, and it has been an honor and a privilege to represent you and your students and the staff as a member of the Amarillo Independent School District Board of Trustees. 4 years ago, whenever I decided to run, my campaign platform was minority children cannot be what they cannot see. And as diverse as our community is, I think it's very important that not only our staff and our board have a direct reflection of what our student population is. And to me, that's really important. But today, we're living in a different day and age. And so what is important to me and the changes that I want to make and the impact that I would like to contribute if I'm elected to represent you again is that being with safety, security, emergency preparedness for our students and our staff. I want to ensure that way so our parents do not be stressed. Am I out of time?
Yes, that's 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
So, went fast for you.
My name is Dick Ford. I've never run for anything before, so this is my first time. It's all new to me.
Dick, if you'll make sure you keep it up.
Okay, there you go. I grew up in Amarillo, went to Hamlet, then over to Avondale, then Sam Houston, Tascosa. Graduated after graduation, went to the Navy, was in the Seabees for a while, and got out. Went to WT and got majors in public administration and business finance. Started my family, had 2 kids, both of which graduated from the school district here in Amarillo. Got 2 grandkids. One's graduated and in college, and the other one's still in school. After I got out of college, I got involved with the real estate business. Started out in the brokerage business in '82, I think it was, a long time ago. In '84, I started Dick Ford Company, and I've been doing construction, real estate. We do financing, leasing, several different companies we've been involved with over the years. So I've got a wide array of business experience, and I've probably done more construction than probably anybody that's been on a school board in some time. So I think,
That's your minute.
that's my minute? Okay. Very good. Boy, a minute goes fast.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started real quick. My name is Alonzo Everhart. I'm not from Amarillo, Texas. I'm from Tyler, Texas, East Texas. But I'm happy to be here. I've called Amarillo home for almost 30 years now. I'm a senior director, the newly appointed senior director of weapons operations at the Pantex plant. Been out there for about 25 years. I lead over 600 people all day, every day. And I think that is what has qualified me for this position, leading a large organization. If you can come to my house right now, in the far east wing of my house, you'll see a Paul Don sign in the far east wing of the house. That's where my oldest child graduated from. He went on to University of Texas at Arlington and achieved a finance degree. If you go into my house and you look at the far west wing of the house, you'll see a Sandy sign there. And my beautiful, lovely daughter, Haley, graduated from Amarillo High School. She's a Sandy. She's a senior at Texas Tech University. She's majoring in biology and chemistry. She'll go on to med school. And then in the center of the house, the baby major is there. And he's at Tascosa. He's a freshman. So I don't have any ties to any one school. I love all the schools. I'm for every school. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So.
That's good, Alonzo. My name's Rob Parker. I'm running for school board, of course. I'm an '83 graduate of Perryton High School. I was actually born in Amarillo but raised in Perryton. Graduate of Texas Tech University. I'm currently serve as Senior Vice President of First United Bank. I've been in banking for well over 30 years. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are graduates of AISD. One's a graduate of Texas Tech. The other one will be graduating this May, actually next month, from Texas Tech. I also have a 7th grader who's at De Zavala. I also have a wife. She's a retired broadcast journalist by the name of Mary. And she's also a substitute teacher within AISD. She gets to hear a lot of the issues that's going on and passes them along to me. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Rob. This is the drill to get you all used to the clock.
I really don't need that. My name is Hobart Brown.
Well,
AKA
Hobart, if you could use it, we're capturing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Hobart Brown, AKA Gunny. I'm a retired Marine, 20 years, combat veteran, Purple Heart recipient. So all my life, to include right now, because I'm a federal employee, I have been serving this country. Why did I decide I want to run for school board? For that same reason that I took that oath to defend this country. The same reason at my job right now, I see what takes place with our veterans every day. For us to be able to fix this country, there's a saying going around for some people in a certain political environment, make America great again. Whereas Mr. Ford would tell you, you just can't build a house with the roof first. You got to start with the foundation. And the foundation is right here. It's in your home, it's in your streets, it's in your community. And the best way to fix your town is through your kids. I'm 53 years old. The future's not me. Our kids are the future.
Thank you.
I'm Kimberly Anderson. I'm a lifelong Amarilloan. I grew up in Eastridge, went to Travis, and graduated in the 1999 Paladar High School class. So I've lived here my whole life. This is my community. I was a classroom teacher at Oakdale for a few years before I became a mom. Then I got involved in PTA. I've been in PTA for 6 years now, PTAing really hard. I'm, in general, a public education advocate. And right now I'm actually teaching kindergarten as a long-term sub in the district. One of the main issues in this election is giving a voice back to teachers because they're the experts when it comes to our kids and what they need. And the best way to give a voice to teachers is to elect a teacher to the school board. And I'm one of those. And so I would respectfully ask that you consider me and consider giving me 1, 2, or 3 of your votes for the school board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As we start questions, I'm going to let you know that I've asked them to forego closing statements so we can get more questions in. So they did well on their 1-minute openings. Okay, we'll start with Mr. Ford. What are your goals for Amarillo ISD?
Well, I've got a handout here if anybody can't remember what I'm going to say.
Yeah,
Read it,
take the microphone, please.
One of the first things is as you mentioned, is we have to have communication from the teachers. You know, to get our kids educated properly, safely, it starts with the teachers. And we have to give the teachers all the support that they need, all the tools they need. And sometimes I question, based on some of the conversations I've had, as to what kind of communication the teachers are having from the bottom up to the top. I'm not for sure that the top really knows exactly what all the tools the teachers need, and I would like for the communication to be one of the main things from the bottom up. Education excellence, we've got to educate our kids the best we can. Once again, the teachers have to have their tools. And then fiscal responsibility. We spend between $280, $300 million a year, depends on what year budget and actuals you look at. And that's a lot of money, plus now we've got $100 million that we're spending on our bond issue, which I voted for. But it's real important that we be physically responsible and prudent with the money we're spending and get the biggest bang for your buck. When you
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, if you'll just pass, or use that one. Pass among you three for this mic.
Yes, to answer that question, so nearly 70% of our students are disadvantaged or at risk. And I believe that students need access to tools that will help them reach their full potential, educational potential, and graduate with a plan. I want to help ensure that all students have a plan and that AISD policy works toward making this happen. Also, for my long-term plan, I believe that we must always work to improve our schools. Our school board must understand that a board governs and does not manage. At Pantex, I have several managers that work below my level. I don't manage on the floor, I actually govern. I set policies and I cast visions all day, every day, and I have managers that I allow to go out and actually make that plan, manage that plan, and manage that vision for me. So that's something that I think that is very important, that as a board member, that we must understand that we govern. Okay, and we set goals and set policies. We don't manage, and that's what the superintendent, as well as the teachers, faculty is out there for. So again, we must put it back in the hands of the teachers and allow them to be teachers. We hire great people
Thank you.
that are really smart. Let them be smart.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Pretty much what Dick and Alonzo said. I think first and foremost is communication, or the lack thereof. Hear this from the teacher level a lot is there is that lack of communication. One teacher specifically told me she has no idea if she has issues who to call. Prior to that, they had cluster directors, and that cluster director was right on, right there. She knew who they were. If there were issues, they would take the lead on it. Right now, she has no idea who to call and who to really go to. So communication is one of them. Other one is accountability. I think you're seeing the school right now making news for the wrong reason. And I think there needs to be a lot of more accountability on the administration side right now. In my opinion, that is lacking. Again, the purpose behind the school is for the kids.
Thank you.
My goals for the Amarillo Independent School District, simple. I'm not going to sit up here and give you some hoopla that I'm going to create this utopia and everything, because I'm not. 2 years from now, 4 years from now, if I'm elected, you might be up here trying to run me out of town. That's a fact, because an elected official is rental property. So my number one goal is to serve the people. If I poll 100 people together and they say 51 of them say change the name of the school and 49 of them say leave it the same, I'm voting to change the name of the school, no matter what my personal feelings are. So my goals is that I'm going to listen to the people. And probably some of the decisions I make from the people is going to rub some people wrong. I really don't care, because my job is to serve the people.
Thank you.
Amarillo ISD has a mission statement of preparing every student for life and success after high school. And I think that's a worthy mission statement. And what we need to do is focus on that and make changes to our district that help us to meet that goal for every student in our district. And one way we need to do that is to change our priorities. We need to change our priority from star readiness and receiving star distinctions and that kind of thing to college and career readiness and life readiness, and empower our kids with the essential skills they're going to need instead of worrying about how they can bubble in a Scantron and these test-taking strategies that are being taught. We also need to get back to developmentally appropriate practice and let our kids be kids, because if you know education theory, you know that children learn by play. And that's a big issue in our district, is and in the state, really. We keep pushing things down and robbing our children of their childhood experiences.
Thank you. Thank you. And
My goals for the district, resources are not distributed equally across the board. We distribute more resources to impoverished areas than we do to, say, the southeast side of town. But we don't get outsized results as because of, even though we do that. And so there's been a lot of studies and a lot of things that have gone into why is that the case. And Mr. Brown talked about foundations. The fact is my kids, we were reading to them when they were very young. They were 2 years old, and we were reading books to them, and we were going down that process of education. When you go to a lot of these other areas that haven't had those experiences growing up in early childhood, between birth to 5 or 10 years old, or 4 or 5 years old, they come into school kind of at a disadvantage compared to others. I would like to figure out a way to close that gap on the early childhood side before kids even enter school, and I think it'll eliminate a lot of the problems that we experience throughout those children's entire academic career. That's when I'm talking about the goals for my district.
Just like Kimberly had said, what the district's vision statement was to graduate every student prepared for life and success beyond high school. And the foundation part of that is improving early childhood education, literacy, and ensuring that our students are reading at grade level. A big part of our state accountability is to focus on college, career, and military readiness. And we live in a different time to where I used to think if I went to college, I would be successful. Well, that's not the case anymore. That is not the case anymore. And so our scholars need a direct path to those other opportunities. Another thing that's really impacted our community is bullying, cyberbullying, and the suicide rate. So my mission is to bring more awareness and prevention and community partnerships so we can combat bullying, so that our scholars don't have to be stressed out about a test or what's going on at school.
thank you. I want to let all the candidates know, if you'll speak up for the audience, the microphones are really to capture the audio for the video production. So I just want to make sure you speak as loud as you can for them. Sure. Okay. John, let's, if an employee or parent or community member brings you specific concerns, in your case, how do you handle the complaint? For the others, how would you handle it?
Interesting enough, this happens almost daily. And so it is my duty as a member of the school district board of trustees to do two things. Report that to our board president, and to also report that conversation with our superintendent of schools, and if the case need, report that to our legal counsel. And I can tell you that I have had several conversations recently with all three of those individuals. In addition, I have gone beyond that, and I have had several conversations with our TASB legal team just to ensure I am doing my part in reporting those instances.
Thank you. Go down that way, I guess. He's note-taking.
Yeah,
No, it's
obviously,
okay.
obviously that question's been an issue here this whole campaign, but if someone was to come to me, a student, a parent, a teacher, whatever, I would I'd tell them that I appreciate them bringing their issue to me, and I would explain to them the role of a school board member is to establish policy and not necessarily fix an individual case. But I would also tell them that they need to visit with their immediate supervisor, and I would go to the superintendent myself on their behalf and discuss their concerns. But there are policy and procedures under which if a teacher or student or someone has a grievance, there's policy they need to go by, and I would advise them of that policy. But then I would also be very compassionate, and I would go to the school board superintendent and reach out to him, and I would ask that person to get back with me in a week or two and let me know if there was any action take place that came back down to them. And if it hadn't, I'd go talk to the superintendent again, and he needs to fix it. So there you go.
Thank you.
Hi. So there's a such thing in the military as we call chain of command. And most importantly, I would make sure that I would listen intently to the situation, make sure I have a good understanding before I form an opinion, and knowing what's going on. But again, I would ensure that that parent or individual that brought the concern to me has used the chain of command. We hired a superintendent. That's what the superintendent as well as the teachers are for. So I would make sure that we get the word out to those folks to make sure that they have an opportunity to deal with the situation and make sure that it's getting handled. If they cannot handle that situation, then I would bring it back to me, and I would do everything I could under the powers that are entrusted upon me as a board member to do the right thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
First and foremost, I will have an open door policy, and I will listen to any parent, any teacher, period. If a parent did call me for a complaint, as Mr. Everhart said, there is a chain of command and an organizational chart. But I'm here to represent everybody. And I would take that notion and listen to it and report it accordingly. I would actually also tell the parent, have you talked to the teacher? Have you talked to the principal? A lot of times they haven't. And that's really, if you do that as a parent, I believe there would be greater appreciation between the parent and the teacher and the principal if you communicate with each other and talk to each other as far as what the problem is and how to solve that problem.
Okay, I'm gonna jump into the deep end of the pool. I believe the answer that people are looking for, what about it concerns another board member? I would look that board member in the eye and tell them they're wrong for what they did. And there would probably be 2 resignations that day, because the way that I would do it, there would probably be some language that shouldn't be used, and we would both be putting in our resignation. We are held at a higher standpoint. I can tell by the heads that's shaking out there, that's the answer y'all was looking for. Y'all wanted to know what we would do if another board member stepped outside their box. And trust me, they would know they stepped outside their box dealing with me.
The first thing I would do if a parent came to me is obviously listen. Listen intently. Be a good listener. And then I would try to help them, to help guide them. Oh, sorry. I would try to help guide them to the best path of resolution of their problem. If it's a management issue or an issue that should be handled through the grievance policy, I'll help them understand that policy and be someone they can come to help guide them through that policy and filing those grievances and handling it that way. If it's a governance issue, I would collaborate with the fellow trustees and the administration to help find a resolution to that problem. Parents are imperative to the success of our district, and so I'll always do everything I can to foster transparency and open, honest communication between the board and parents and the community. And so I hope that answers that for you.
Thank you.
Just as John said, there are restrictions in terms of procedures and things like that that a board member must follow. And so obviously it's in the best interests of the school district and the board that those procedures are followed. To kind of echo what Mr. Brown had said, yes, I'm sure a lot of this has to do with a particular board member in question. A lot of those things have to be dealt with in an executive session, and that's secret, and nobody knows what anybody says, and there's a reason for that. Nevertheless, we're elected officials. We represent the people that elected us. And in Amarillo, it's a cumulative voting system, so in essence, we represent everybody in town equally. And I don't just represent the neighborhood that I live in. I represent this other side over here. So those problems should be dealt with appropriately according to procedure and also along with the chain of command. 90% of all these small issues can be dealt with earlier in the process, going directly to a teacher and a principal before it ever has to rise up to a superintendent or board member. And if it does go that far, then it goes that far and there's procedures in place to handle that. And there's my no.
Thank you. John? Did we still have you two, right? Yeah. Oh, you started it. I'm sorry. I'm losing my track. Let's see. Alonzo, do you support merit pay programs or incentives based on testing results?
To answer that question, no, ma'am, I do not support incentive-based. I think because each campus is different and each student is different. Teachers at different campuses deal with different scenarios with different students. And I think by performing an incentive-based performance scale out there on teachers would be unfair to some teachers because some teachers are dealing with low-performing students, and therefore things are a little bit different, a little bit more tougher on them. Also, every student, even some of your brightest students, do not test very well. Okay, and so you have to take that into consideration. So I do not feel that that would be fair to place out there on a teacher some incentive performance-based testing out there to determine, you know, how that teacher is performing. Because again, the teachers, the students are different, and so we just need to keep that in mind. So I would not base that off that. So.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm going to echo what Mr. Everhart said, is I basically don't support that either. You know, I have a child at Days of Alla right now, and he went through third and fourth grade at the Woodlands. You can't compare that school with a school, for instance, over at East Ridge or et cetera, like that. Kids are different. They take tests different. There are different areas that need more attention, which is probably what we need to focus on. If you're talking about incentive pay or merit pay, what you need to do is look at the district as a whole, not individual schools or grades or anything like that. So that's kind of the way I would look at it.
Thank you.
Incentive pay for teachers. You know, that's one of those kind of things where I had to sit down with teachers, figure out what they want, what do they think, let them educate me on it. But one thing that I do have a problem with, and not to try to bicker with my good friend sitting beside me here right there, is the thought process that just because one school's in one neighborhood, that it's better than that school. You know, I was a Marine for 20 years. I had this unit that was an anti-terrorist team. And if we couldn't get the job done, they called in the Navy SEALs. And one day my Marines was all depressed and everything, like, SEALs this. And I said, you know what make a SEAL better than you? Budget. They got more money and they got more face time. And that's all it is about these schools. De La Valle versus a school in East Ridge. It's just budget and where they're located.
Thank you.
Merit-based pay and outcome-based pay has been proven ineffective in other states. So I just want to get that out there. It is not a research-based policy that actually has a positive impact. In Texas, it would be based on a test that's been proven to tell us more about the socioeconomic demographics of a school than actual achievement. And it would lead to our schools that need the most help being understaffed and staffed by the least qualified teachers when they need the best qualified teachers because they're facing more challenges. But what we must stop doing is assuming that teachers are not doing their very best job right now, because they are. They're killing themselves for these kids. We've got to start addressing the real barriers to success, like poverty. There are so many studies that show that students that grow up in poverty come to school at least a year behind their more advantaged peers. So we've got to start addressing the real barriers and stop blaming teachers.
Thank you.
Kimberly's absolutely right. Those there's been plenty of studies that prove that that doesn't work. And in addition to that, there's been other studies that show that when you are putting an incentive behind some sort of metric or some sort of measurement, that creates an automatic incentive to manipulate the results of that metric. And I would hate to put people in a position to feel like they would do that. I think that would just be an unfortunate situation. And in terms of, yes, in Texas we do grade people on a test. That's a test that's taken on one day when you show up for school. There's so many factors that go into that day. Did that child get a good night's sleep that night? Did they have a good breakfast that day? All of those things that factor into how a child starts their day versus last week when they did have a good breakfast and a good night's sleep. Right? Well, the test day is the test day. And so we're trying to manipulate this test when it's one day out of the year, and we can't have it's a horrible way to figure out our measurements, I would say.
Say this short and sweet. I absolutely do not support and incentivize pay for teachers simply because there's not a way to measure it. But what I will tell you is I am in full support of ensuring that we pay our teachers and our staff a livable wage. Our pride and our possession of not only our district is our students and our staff, and we need to make sure that we take care of them with how we pay them and what their benefits that they get.
Thank you.
I'm obviously very much against it. I just don't think that the teacher's pay should be based on a test a kid takes. That's just all there is to it. And the fact of the matter is, a kid that grows up healthy and no learning disabilities and two parents that read to him every night like y'all did, that kid's going to do better than an immigrant that comes over here with a single mom that goes to school hungry and doesn't start reading until he gets to school while he's trying to learn English at the same time. The fact of the matter is that kid's going to be behind. So, you know, I don't know if y'all have kids or not, but I promise you, if you do, a lot of you know, I know you do. We try to make it even on Christmas. I spend $100 on this kid. We're going to spend $100 on every kid. But when it comes to the whole growing of life, the kids aren't equal. One boy's going to have a car wreck, and that doesn't mean when you pay to fix his car, you give your daughter the same amount of money. Every kid needs a different, you got to pay what it takes to take care of the problem with the kid at the time that you're dealing with. And I think that the kids that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, the fact of the matter is they need more support staff, they need more money, and they need more funding than your kids that you raise. That's just all there is to it.
Thank you. We didn't have a beep because our clock is having some issues, but I have a stopwatch right up here. Okay, Rob, as a property-poor school district, how should Amarillo ISD prioritize resources to meet the needs of every child?
That's a good question, Karen. Right now, our property taxes make up 38% of our budget. 57% comes from the state. With that, we need to, again, go to the schools that really need the help and really focus on them with our resources. We here don't have all the resources or 100% of them. Again, the state has 58%. And I was talking to somebody the other day who wouldn't mind having the state having 100%. And I was shaking my head no, because right now there's too much bureaucracy. There's too much bureaucracy from the state, from the federal side, coming down to the local level. And if we did that, we would lose everything and just add to it.
Thank you.
I'm glad you didn't start off with me with that question, because that's a tough one right there. You know, outside the box thinking, that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to think outside the box. A lot of problems that arise for any situation, sometimes we just get too focused on what's right there in front of us rather than thinking outside the box. And that's one of my things, when I deal with outside the box, once again, I'm going to go back to the people who knows these things. You know, teachers. Look at other school districts that's in the same situation we are. Sometimes you gotta suck up your pride. You gotta ask for help. And I'm pretty sure there's other districts out there that's in the same problem we're in that have found ways to get out of it. But we might just need to actually look at them. You take a look at the city of Amarillo right now. A lot of the things that we're doing, we're modeling it off of other cities. So why come the school district can't do the same?
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to take a second and correct Mr. Parker. Actually, right now, Texas, our funding, 10% comes from the national government. About 38% comes from the state and 52% comes from the local government. So I just wanted to correct that because the local government does carry the highest burden of funding our school districts. What we need to do in Amarillo is prioritize personnel. It has been proven that the greatest impact on our students is the people who work with them every day. And that's not just teachers, that's paraprofessionals. That's the teachers' aides, that's counselors, that's diagnosticians, that's librarians, that's the cafeteria lady and the custodian. And so we need to make sure we prioritize our personnel, and we need to make sure that all of our personnel have a living wage. Our teachers are have one of the highest scales in our area, but it's more gainful to work at Chick-fil-A now than it is to be a para in AISD.
Excuse me for a moment. Mr. Betancourt, there seems to be a disagreement about the numbers, and I don't want to get into a debate about it, but since you're a sitting trustee, can you help with
I would
that?
echo what Kimberly had said, but the real big issue is the state needs to adequately fund public education, and that's where the issue is. And so we as stakeholders in our ISD, we need to hold our state representatives accountable because there's where the real change comes. And that's why it's so important during this current legislative session that we are contacting our representatives, that we are calling them, that we are emailing them, that we are shouting out to the rooftops that they need to support public education.
Thank you. I'll back up to you, Aaron.
Not to add to the fight, I actually met with Patty Becknall, who is the CFO of AISD, yesterday. Local funds contribute in the neighborhood of $93 million to the budget. State funds are on the order of $157 million to the budget. Federal funds fill in the gap that takes us up closer to about 325 total. So there's about a $60 million influx from federal funds. State funds and federal funds, those come in and they basically say, here's some money, here's how you're going to spend it. There's not a free-for-all. On the city side, they get all of their revenue from sales taxes and those kinds of taxes on the city side, and they can spend their money on whatever they want. They can go spend it on ballparks and streets and police officers and all those things. The school district is very limited in how their resources can be allocated simply because the money that they get comes with strings attached. Now, we have some wiggle room. We're able to, just decide what curriculum we want and things like that, and that's where we need to put our resources in trying to cover all students.
Thank you. Mr. Ford.
I don't know about that. I thought it was 58% came from the state, according to what the website says. But anyway, the facts are what they are, so it's not an opinion. We can always go review the facts. I think anytime you have a finite amount of money, whether you're the federal government, individual household, or the school district, it's strictly an allocation of resources. And before you can allocate resources, you have to prioritize. And so if you have to live within your means, you got to do your prioritization and then fund the things that have the highest priority. We could all debate what that priority is, but I think all of us will agree that educating the kids in a safe environment is the highest priority. Now, how we get there is a discussion. But I really think that the funding should be there, and from a tax standpoint, I'm a real estate guy, so I pay a lot of property taxes, and I've never voted against a bond issue, and the taxes I pay on my real estate, I just don't have a problem with it.
Thank you. One more.
As you guys know, I'm not currently on the board, so I'm not going to try to get into the numbers and all. But I will say in today's times right now, students need more than the core subjects. So your reading and your math and stuff like that. Electives, all types of electives, the students, I feel strongly that they need all of these to be successful in life, to prepare them for life after high school. So, and also the teachers. The teachers need to have better wages. I support the teachers. We've had wonderful things go on in the times when my kids came through the Woodlands. We actually represented our teachers. We had a day set out aside every day, every year for the teachers, where we celebrated an entire week for our teachers. And that's the thing we need to get back to. We need to get back to the basics to make sure we're taking care of the needs of our students as well as the needs of the teachers. So.
Thank you. Hobart, I'll let you start with this one. Do you believe Amarillo ISD should develop a comprehensive sex education curriculum, and why or why not?
No. Can you hear me? Okay, no. Because I believe that's something, once again, we are, teachers go to school to teach, all right? There is too much diversity out there to be trying to have a teacher teach somebody about sex, okay? Granted, I learned about sex from the good old boy down the street, and it probably was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But with my children, I sat them down and talked about it. When you start dealing with all these different religions and lifestyles out there, that teacher never knows when he or she is going to cross that boundary that he or she should never have crossed. So I am definitely against that. I am definitely against that. You are bringing in too many unvariables that you can't control. You have...
Thank you.
I actually do believe this is a need in Amarillo. We have a high rate of teen pregnancy, and so obviously there is a gap that needs to be filled. Now, let's just stipulate that it would have to be like a scientific class, not a values-based class, because we do have a diverse population with a wide range of religious beliefs and personal beliefs, and we don't want to impede on that. That's not our place as a public school district, but it is our place to educate our kids and make them prepared for life and success after high school. And part of that is teaching them what they need to know and preventing these barriers to success. And a baby's always a blessing, but it does make it a lot harder when you're a mom at 17 to go on and get a post-secondary degree and be gainfully employed. So I do think it's a need in our district.
Ideally, this would be something that I wish could be handled at home. But the fact of the matter is not all parents handle these issues, home-style issues, the same way. Some of our kids are able to process those things and are mature enough to deal with them, and others of them aren't, and some parents just don't address it with their children adequately. And so, frankly, it's an issue that does affect our school system and our skill. In terms of creating these types of educations at an early age, I'm against that. Our kids are already growing up way too fast as it is, and I'm not in favor of ramming that down anybody's throat at an early age. There's an appropriate time when a child should be appropriate or mature enough to deal with these issues in a scientific way. I would say on the younger side of the spectrum, it would be better to teach our kids that kindness is important. There are different people out there. They're different than you. You're going to see different races and religions and colors and preferences throughout your entire life, and it's essential that you be kind and treat them the right way.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely, definitely. Simply because we are not only one of the highest teen pregnancy in the state, but also in the nation. And to me, that speaks volumes of what the current situation is in regards to teen pregnancy. But on top of that, we have a high statistic rate on sexually transmitted diseases within our young citizens. And so for those reasons, I definitely do think that we do need to implement education.
Thank you. Dick?
I concur. I think we ought to have it. I had it in the 6th grade. I don't think it warped me too bad. And I mean, it was a long time ago, but but there's certain biological facts that some parents talk to their kids about and other parents don't. And it's not fair to the kids that have the parents that don't talk to them. And I just think that we ought to educate our kids, and that's part of being educated.
Thank you.
Yes, and I believe that we should have it. I think it should be in line with the Texas Board of Health and Safety. I think it's a great opportunity for the kids to get to know themselves, know their bodies, and know how their bodies work. And so I do support it. I think it will be something very important.
Rob?
I agree with the last three here. Is I do believe we need to have it. Teen pregnancy is an issue here in Amarillo. It has been, and we need to curtail that probably as quickly as we can. It's, doing it at home, having your parent do it, you really can't rely on that. It's just the same as reading. Some parents read to their kids, some don't. And those that don't get read are being penalized as they come through school and being graded lower on reading ability than those that do. So I do concur with them.
Thank you. Hobart? Hobart? Oh, he already did it. Thank you for keeping me on track. We have a few moments for questions from the audience, so what I'd ask is that you say your question, I will repeat it for the microphones for our recording, and then we'll start down the line. Mr. Anthony.
If you could say what your one moment that you had when you woke up that morning and said, I'm going to run for the school district, what is the one issue of concern that was yours?
What is the one issue of concern that caused you to run for the trustee board? I'll just start down the line.
For me, it's fairness. I live in a part of town where this, issue with a school board member is, front and center. And what happened there wasn't fair. And it's not fair when a school board member can manipulate let's say a grade, and now your child is out of the top 10 or top 10% and loses out on a lot of those opportunities that come with those accolades. It's not fair when your child is put in the back from a position that they earned rightfully to be in the theater production or a band or whatever we have that's merit-based. And I think a lot of folks in this community are pretty familiar with fairness. And I would say that if we're comfortable treating people on that side of town with that level of fairness, we're probably pretty comfortable being unfair to other people that don't have such a voice. And that to me is not right. And so I would say just fairness as an overall factor is what influenced me to run.
Thank you. John?
The most important reason for me running for re-election, it's because of my heart. I had discovered a friend of mine who had committed suicide. And we ended 2018 with a total of 45 suicides, which was 10 more than what we had in 2017. I can tell you 6 out of them 45 were minors. And to me, that's a clear indication that we have a huge problem with bullying, cyberbullying, and teen suicides. And so it is my passion and my mission, if I get elected or if I don't get elected, to bring more awareness and to bring community partnerships so we can combat this, because we are all stakeholders into the future of our children. And to me, that matters. Every single life in our community matters, and we need to do a better job.
Thank you. Dick?
Well, whenever I was involved with my grandson in high school and was heavily involved with the coaches and teachers, I just saw so many issues, and I can fix that. There are issues with kids' cost to go to Dick Bivens, issues that teachers need, things teachers need, simple things. They got to buy their own copy paper sometimes. I mean, there's just a lot of little things, and I'm thinking to myself, I can fix those things. There's some traffic issues at some of the high schools here in town. It's serious issues. Caprock and Tascosa both have serious issues. I can fix that. I've got some ideas how to fix that. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I was on the school board and I fixed all of it, I can fix that stuff. I know how to do it. So that's why I decided to run.
Alonzo.
I decided to run simply because I'm a servant at heart. I've served the Lord for a long time, for over 30 years. I've served this country 13 years in the United States Navy. I continue to serve this country for over 25 years at the Pantex plant. I want to serve you all. I have a summer track club where I have the opportunity to touch the lives and be a part of the lives of many kids from all over this entire area, not just the 4 schools that make up AISD high schools, but the Canyon schools as well. And I have the opportunity to put something back into these kids, to give them something. And so for that, I say, I feel like that I want to be able to do more. I want to be able to not just impact these kids in that capacity and be able to help them get off to maybe to a college or university, whether it's a 2-year school or 4-year school, but then also get on this board to maybe I can help prepare them to be prepared for life after high school. And, you know, I sit back and I wonder and I say, you know, I'm not qualified. But then again, I know I'm qualified because I've been doing this for a long time and campaigning for this. I just didn't know it. Thank you.
I'd like to start out to say I'm a banker, and I do a lot of volunteer around the community. And this is a volunteer position. You do not get paid for it, and you're doing it for the kids. A year ago, I went through the AISD LEAD program, and we toured a lot of elementary schools. Elementary schools were all about college. I mean, it was college, 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 college. Second to last meeting, we toured ACAL and got to see how ACAL, got to talk to Mr. Barrett. Then the last meeting was at the Hastings building. And I pretty much put 2 and 2 together and saying, you know, we need to look at our kids and make them a productive member of Amarillo and a tax-paying member. And what we need to do is start offering more on vocationals, being the electrical, being the plumbing, the HVAC, the CDLs. Work in that to where not all kids are meant for college. And we need to work on the vocations.
Thank you. Hobart?
There's a few people out there that personally know me and know that I am a fighter. I fight for people. And when I say I fight for people, there's no boundaries there. You know, a lot of times when we say we fight for people, we want to say it's socioeconomic involved. No, you know, you can. There's individuals who lives in $1 million homes, and their parents don't even pay attention to them. The nanny sees them more than the parents do, and those kids have learning disabilities. So, my goal, like I said in my opening statement, for America to be great again, our neighborhoods have to be great again. Our community has to be great again. Our homes have to be great again. And I'm not going to sit on the sideline, win or lose this election, and sit back and not do anything anymore and just give lip service. I'm going to get out there and hit the streets.
Thank you. She's waiting for, she's gotten used to the
I'm running
clock.
for the kids. We have almost 30,000 kids in Amarillo ISD, and I want to make sure every single one of them has an advocate on the board, and every single parent has an advocate on the board. I decided to run a little over a year ago. You know, I've spent the better part of the last 15 years as an advocate for public education for children, as a teacher in the PTA, and just some personal advocacy that I do. And I've been waiting that whole time for someone more qualified and better to come along and to address the problems. And last year, my sister told me, why don't you stop waiting and do it yourself? Because you've been waiting a long time and no one's come along. And so stop waiting and do it. And then I talked to some other people I respect, and they were like, do it. And so that's when I decided. It was about a year and a half ago, and it's 100% for the kids because they're my heart. And that's why I'm running. Thank you.
We have time for one more, so who's got a really good one? You in the back.
I'd like to thank PBS, Panhandle PBS, and the local chapter of the NAACP for putting this together. I'd like to thank everyone on the panel, not just for running, but for who you are as human beings. My question's simple. If elected or re-elected, would you call for an immediate investigation, external and independent, relative to the Corey Clemens situation and the circumstances surrounding her departure? Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, would you call for an independent investigation of the incident or the disagreement about the coach? You want to go? That wasn't your question?
No, if they would call for an immediate investigation surrounding the circumstances relative to the departure of Corey Clemens.
Surrounding the circumstances regarding the departure of Corey Clemens.
If anybody has read my posts or talked to me about this, they know how I feel. I feel strongly about that. If the people of the Amarillo Independent School District said that's what they want, I will be right there carrying the banner for you. Legal, there might be some legal issues that we have to look at, but there is a town called, it's up by Houston. This case, similar to this case, is being investigated right now by external organizations. So it can be done. Like I said earlier, sometimes you got to think outside the box and you got to look at other things. So yes, I would support it.
Thank you. Stuck in there.
I take a little bit different road. First of all, I don't know if that's within the purview of the board to do. What I think is really striking about this situation, I don't know enough facts to know what happened, and we need to know facts, but what I think is striking is the way the community and teachers have clinged onto this, and it's obviously indicative of an issue in our district, a cultural issue. And I don't know that, I'm not saying anything happened or anything didn't. If it did, I don't know that this board member being removed would fix the problem, because this has been a problem in Amarillo for as long as I can remember, is the parental politics and things like that. We need to move forward and working on the culture in Amarillo. So if there is anything to this allegation, that it doesn't happen again. Because what's done is done, and it's not going to be correct. Corey can't come back. It's not going to happen. We have to work on fixing our culture so it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Aaron?
I don't know what happened or didn't happen either. That's what an investigation's for. That's how you find out what happened or didn't happen. So I do support the idea of having an independent investigation. That I'm interested in knowing, and I'm interested in also setting an example that kind of things are not tolerated. That's not within the honor and trust that is bestowed on anybody on the board, and so it shouldn't happen. I think just on the parental level, parents should be advocates for their children. That doesn't mean they're defense attorneys for their children. That doesn't mean that they're over the top, taking, going, there's a boundary there, and that needs to be established, and that is a cultural issue. That's something that, it's more epidemic in some parts than others. And, it's funny, we have, issues in other parts of town where parents aren't involved enough. And we have issues down here where they're involved too much. There's a right spot there, and we need to figure that out as a community. I don't know that an investigation, puts that all together, but I'd like to know, just what happened, and it needs to be dealt with, and realize that's not tolerated, from a governance level.
Thank you. John?
I have a different approach just simply because I'm a current member of the board, and I don't know all the facts. I know what the community knows, which is the story that Corey put out there. In a previous statement, I did say that I had been in communications with the TASB legal team, and that was because of this situation. And I wanted to make certain that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing as a trustee. But we don't know all the facts, and I can tell you that I have had conversations with our superintendent, with our president of the board, and also with our in-house legal team, and I personally have asked for an agenda item or a discussion that the board can have in regards to another board member's conduct. So I can tell you that the officers are meeting this week to discuss what the board agenda is going to be for our following meeting.
Thank you. Dick?
It'd be a lot easier to answer that question if I didn't know the facts, but I don't know the facts. And also, who would do the investigation? I don't know who would do the private investigation. You know, I think it needs to be looked into, but I can assure you if I was on the board, I would know the facts. And I would have it dealt with somehow. I think the problem the board did is they put it under the rug and just ignored it. It needs to be dealt with. And at some level or some degree or some statement, but the board needs to acknowledge it publicly and they need to deal with it. And maybe there's nothing that can be done, but at least they need to acknowledge it and set in policy and procedures to where that kind of stuff doesn't happen again. All I know is what I hear, and what I hear is it wasn't just two people at fault. It was potentially more than two people at fault, but I don't know that. And so I think I would wait to get on the board and then evaluate what would be able to find out at that time to answer your question.
Thank you. Alonzo?
And to be short and sweet to the point. So I don't know, like everybody else has said except for John, I don't know the facts. I know John's on the board and respect him and all the board members. But I just would like to say this. I'm not so sure that already some type of investigation hasn't already taken place, okay? I would assume that that has already taken place. But I know as a board right now, the thing for me that I would be focused on right now is there's thousands of other kids out there, and please don't take this out of context, but there's thousands of other kids that are out there that make up AISD. My focus as a board member right now would be to move forward with those kids and the rest and the parents that make up those kids, and then I would allow the investigative team to do what it is that they do and let them handle that piece of it. I would want to make sure the communication is out there once we got all the facts. And I'd also like to say I know for a fact that there's some type of legal ramifications that wouldn't allow the board to put anything out right now anyway. So that's why I'm speaking the way I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob?
If the board is able to, yes, I would do an investigation on it. I know Renee. I know Corey. I also know Corey's mom and dad very well. And I believe Corey's mom was a longtime educator here at AISD. And very, very good people. And I'm sure she had some advice back to Corey on this particular situation. There's certain things you can do HR-wise, or you're going to get yourself in legal trouble. And that's probably why the board is staying quiet about it, because there are issues like that. But Corey wasn't the only other one this happened to. There was a gentleman who is the softball coach, same situation. I know him. But because he was a softball coach and not the volleyball coach, it kind of went under the rug. So.
Thank you. Okay, it appears our time is gone this morning. Please give our candidates a round of applause for participating today. And give yourselves credit for being here and being engaged in our community. The election's May 4th. You have 3 votes to cast in this race and 1 vote to cast in Robin Malone's race at the Amarillo School District Board of Trustees.